am Orlando Jones, and I just want you to know that the Moana Nui Podcast will be starting soon. Stay tuned, yo.
I'm Veronica Taylor, and from myself and Ash Ketchum, I just want to say, Moana Nui, I choose you!
Okay, welcome to Moana Nui Podcast. My name is Alan Z.
And my name is Jay.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And we have Rachel True.
Hello.
I guess I'll start it off. So I want to jump right into half and half and that era. So
yes.
For you, like, what was it like to be part of like the golden era of UPN before CW took over?
That's a good question, actually. Honestly, at the time, if I'm being 100% honest, it was, first of all, amazing to be number one on the call sheet of a sitcom. I mean, every actor strives and wants to be number one. Black actors are rarely a number one, or were at that time, I should say. It's changed now. So that was fantastic, and I love being silly and entertaining people. The second part is, though, I came out of the 90s from doing movies, and back then, TV and movies were super separate. You know, one was more prestigious than the other. It doesn't really matter because they were all the same. But that was my first real foray into doing television, and so to be able to do it and be number one on the call sheet was amazing. That said, I feel like UPN, like, you know, CBS owned UPN, and I think they treated us like a second stepchild, to be 100% honest. That's my truth about that. They paid us less, they gave us less attention, less press, and sometimes it seemed like we were an afterthought. But like a lot of networks, they built their they built their network up on the backs of black people, just like WB had done when it first started. So it kind of made sense. It all folded into WB at a certain point. But I did say, like, oh, I get it. It's the end of Us and the beginning of Pretty White Teenagers, and I was not wrong.
Yeah. Called it.
Yeah.
So
but there is a little more diversity on those shows now, at least. So it's not just Pretty White Teenagers.
Yeah.
Sidebar to that.
Yeah. I know you mentioned movies, so I wanted to jump into your film career. So the CB4 being like one of the breakout roles for you, could you walk us through how you met Chris Rock and, how that led to your audition?
Oh, you know what? I did have a leg up in that, actually. I'll fully admit this. But I met Chris Rock because I was working as a dialogue coach with Raven Simone. Right after the Cosby Show ended, Raven Simone was doing her own new pilot TV show. It was filming on the Saturday Night Live soundstage because they were off for the summer. So I think the first time I met Chris, I had these two little children that I was dialogue coaching, Raven and the other boy on the show. And Chris just happened to be stopping by, and he said hello. And so that's how we met. Now, that's why I say I had a leg up, right? Because if I just auditioned for it without meeting him, would I have gotten it? Maybe, but maybe not. But also, I bring that up to say life is random. You know, you never know where you're going to meet someone is the truth. And how you respond to them in that moment, like, I was probably nice to him. And so he went, oh, okay, we'll read her for this movie. Whereas a lot of times people meet strangers and maybe they're a little like gruff with them or this or that. And you never know. Here's my thing, you just never know. Right. I'm not saying be nice for the sake of moving ahead. I'm saying be nice to everyone because that's how you like to be treated. Right. And if some of those people happen to be people who can help you, even the better. More the better. That's really the truth.
I don't know if you ever read Michael Caine's book on acting.
Yeah.
There was a section where he talks about like you have to be nice to, like, when you're acting 24/7. So like
that's true.
Being friends with like the bus driver could lead to something because if you're a dick to him, he could be the cousin of the director of the, and you just don't know how the
That's
world
very
works.
true. Again, I say we shouldn't be nice to people just because they could possibly help us. That's very right, and because that's manipulative, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that. We want it to be organic. So I would say that I've had, which is helpful. Not that I'm not, sometimes I am, but generally I like people, you know, so be friendly. And then you just never know. The guy, when I was working on the craft, the guy who picked us up, he was a production assistant at PA. So you're the lowest on the totem pole, basically.
Yeah.
He was picking us up in his very beat up car, me and Nev. And then 2 years later, he had an office at Sony. Right? So, that didn't actually help me. He never called me in, but my point is, what if I'd been a real asshole to him? You're just a PA picking me up. I don't think like that at all, by the way. But at all, don't take that soundbite and make it sound like I'm gonna... But I'm saying, what if we treated him like a servant instead of a peer? You know? Because for all I know, he might have called me in on his projects, and I just don't know it because he's all head at the top now. So, yes. I wouldn't say you're acting 24/7, but you...
Well, I mean, like, you're in the career 24/7. Like,
you are absolutely in the career.
Yeah, like what you say and what you put out in the world, it's going to reflect back on you because it's going to ultimately, like... Someone's gonna be in the room and be like, "Well, do you like her? Well, she's kind of mean to me."
That's right. In fact, for people who want to be actors out there, they all talk to each other.
Yeah.
They all call each other and say, "How was Rachel on set? Was she an asshole or was she cool to work with?" Because I don't want to be stuck with an asshole for 8 months out of the year. And so sometimes the better actor might actually not get it because they have a rep for being difficult and nobody wants to be around that.
That's true.
And I want to, you didn't ask, but I want to kind of segue this to, you know, the lovely Julian Sands, who is, he went hiking, he was missing for quite a while and they just found his remains. So, you know, rest in peace, the lovely Julian Sands. He was the warlock. He was all these great roles. He was so fantastic. Spent time with him. My very first convention was with Julian Sands. And I was so nervous, you know, because just meeting people, and I didn't also grow up hugging. So, you know, the whole convention thing really threw me off where I got, anyway. Julian said to me one day, he said, "Oh, darling, Rachel, it's like this." He said, "Darling, it's like a 2-minute play you're putting on for them. It is a 2-minute play for an audience of 1. And you give them your full attention. Your full attention." And he's so right about that. Whether it is a movie you're doing where you're giving your full attention to your scene partner, right? Locked into you. There's a camera right there, but I'm talking to you. You have my attention. It's kind of the same way when I do these because I overstand. I like the word overstand. It makes more sense than understand. So I overstand that these are people who've spent their own money, their hard-earned money to come here, and their hobby is movies and all of this. So I want to give them the best experience that they can and something to remember, you know? So I like to chit-chat a little bit when they come by.
Yeah, no, for sure. And okay, well, no, I want you to answer this question because this is one of the questions that it comes full circle. We've been talking about a lot about people and energy and just kind of that mentality. So I want to segue to, I know back in 2020 you released your book, True Heart, Intuitive, and so I wanted to understand what inspired you to even write this book and to want to share your experience and story.
Well, thanks for the question, because a couple of reasons. One was, I have always loved and utilized tarot as a way to therapize myself, right? I call it on the back of the box a shrink in a box for a reason, because it's such a great tool for that. So it's something I was introduced to at 8 years old. A friend of my parents came over and they gave me a deck, and I was looking at the images on the deck and I went, I know this. And then I circled back to the books that I pulled down from my father's library, and it was Carl Jung's Man and His Symbols and Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. Those are the two books when I was in foster care from 0 to 4. When I went to go live with my dad, those are the two books I pulled down, and I would mostly for the images, right? Of course, but I could read at that age. But I was probably just looking at the images. So when I got the tarot deck a few years later, I went, this is the same, this is what they were talking about in that book. Yeah. And this is a language I could learn to understand, is what I realized with tarot. So it was just a passion of mine through most of my life, and I used it to self-soothe and calm myself down in moments where I was like, what's happening? Which is a lot of the time. So it was a tool for me. And so I decided to write the book. It just kind of came up organically. And the way that we structured it is it's a how-to. So it explains to you how to do tarot, and it goes through the interpretations of all the cards. And then it also includes 22 personal memoirs that match up with the 22 major arcana cards. There are 22 main cards in the deck that are about big life things. The rest of the cards in the deck are more day-to-day things. So I have an essay for the big life things. And as I was saying downstairs, listen, some of the essays are like, it was great and I just had fun, but most of the essays are literally me filleting myself and saying, here's where I messed up, here's what I learned, and here's how I used tarot to help me. Because if I'd written a whole bunch of essays going, and then I went to the Vanity Fair party and danced all night, you're like, oh, you had fun. That's all you get out of that, right? But if I say, here's where I fell on my face, but I had the strength to get back up, release the shame of whatever I messed up, and then try it again. So I just wanted to